Let's have a look at Frydenberg's Recession speech. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Now, I did a live stream where we went through Josh Frydenberg's Recession speech, and I thought I would take a highlight out of that live stream because it was over 2 hours just of his speech, so you could listen to that in a smaller portion. So now we'll go over to that live stream, and you'll see some comments from viewers coming up on the screen as they're mentioning things and discussing, and I'll respond to that and comment on his speech. But this is a hopefully a once in a lifetime event. As always, I'll pass over to that Florian. Take care. Pause there. How that audio was, guys. Let me know how that audio was, guys, while I just resize this. Okay, here we go. Get your rums ready, everyone. No, I won't be going to the grand final, mate. Is Collingwood playing? I'm meant to be a Collingwood supporter. Don't hold that against me. You say that to people, it pisses so many of them off. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Today's national accounts confirm the devastating impact on the Australian economy from COVID-19. Our record run of 28 consecutive years of economic growth has now officially come to an end. The cause? A once-in-a-century pandemic. The effect? A COVID-19 induced recession.
Now, do you think that's a fair claim? I mean, he can't really say the cause, the pandemic, the cause is the government's response to it. But I mean, they can't frame it like that. It's politics, isn't it? It's politics. He has to frame it in a particular way.
Real GDP fell in the June quarter by 7%, the largest quarterly fall on record.
You want Frydenberg louder? Okay, hang on. Hang on. Up a bit.
Since the series began in 1959...
Is that good? Let me know in the comments, guys. Is that loud enough? I'll put it up. I'll put it a bit more.
This is its largest ever fall. The previous largest fall was 2% in 1974.
2%? That was the previous largest fall? Wow. Shit. Can you hear him now, Sunshine? I've put him up. Guys, let me know if it's good. Just say audio good or something. Everyone else is saying good? You thought Heise was in a suit, Trish. I can pull out the suit. Go back and watch like my second or third video. I used to wear them all the time with pocket squares. But the problem is I've lost so much weight now. Actually, maybe I might get... Oh, they wear out so quick if you wear them all the time. And they're so damn expensive.
Behind these stories and these numbers are heartbreaking stories of hardship being felt by everyday Australians as they go about their daily lives. Be it the tourism operator in Cairns, the tradie in Melbourne, the cafe worker in Adelaide, or the domestic flight attendant in Sydney. They have all been hard hit by COVID-19. Today, we are reporting these devastating numbers, but today Australians are living them.
Well, technically we've been living them for 2 quarters, mate, but all good, all good.
we have done everything possible to cushion the blow for the Australian community from COVID-19. Our priority has and will continue to be saving lives and ensuring that Australia's healthcare system has the capacity to test and to trace and to treat coronavirus cases. We acted quickly and decisively to close our international borders and put in place restrictions that would suppress transmission but allow large parts of the economy to continue operating where it was safe to do so. We didn't go down the path of countries like Sweden, which put few restrictions in place.
Isn't it interesting now that some, isn't the WHO, what is it, complimenting Sweden's response? I'll have to look into it. Someone sent me some stuff. I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
At the same time, we didn't go down the path of countries like France, which accepted and adopted extreme lockdowns, totally shutting down large parts of their economy.
Yeah, but to be brutally honest, the French don't work much anyway. They only do 30-hour weeks, so they probably didn't even notice the lockdown.
Instead, we chose our own path and put in place $314 billion worth of support for Australians to build a bridge to the other side of this crisis. Our strong economic position going into this crisis has given us the financial firepower to respond. Without the Morrison government's economic support, 700,000 more jobs would have been lost and the unemployment rate 5 percentage points higher than it is today.
Byron made a really good point here on Twitch. We didn't choose our own path. We did exactly what everyone else did. That's the point, isn't it? Every country pretty much just did the same thing. The health officials, no one had the guts to really question the popular narrative, the popular approach, the popular solution. Sweden was the only one. They were the only one. So it's interesting, very good point.
This support has enabled Australia to avoid the fate of many other nations. This crisis is like no other. The World Bank is expecting more economies to contract this year than at any time since 1870. The OECD is forecasting a contraction in the global economy this year of 6%, compared to just 0.1% at the height of the GFC in 2009. And globally, the equivalent of around 500 million full-time jobs have been lost, according to the International Labour Organisation. Indeed, Australia's economic performance sits among the top of those developed nations as a result of our health and our economic plan to fight the virus. In the United Kingdom,
I don't know. Could it be that we've got some other advantages too? Perhaps vitamin D levels, sunlight, population density, temperature. Yeah, but I mean, it's politicians. They need to claim the win. They need to claim. I understand. And the biggest thing is we're probably going to look a lot better than some other countries that have just done much worse.
GDP fell by 20.4% in the June quarter. In France, GDP fell by 13.8%. Canada by 11.5%. Germany by 9.7%. And the United States by 9.1%.
Thanks for the super chat, mate. That's like 5 7-Eleven coffees. I'll go it, don't worry.
While New Zealand is expecting the economy to contract by more than 20%. This is in contrast to today.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. That's 10 7-Eleven coffees, because that's honestly where I go out now. Is that sad? Guys, is that sad?
Is national accounts, which show that GDP fell by 7% in the June quarter and contracted by 0.2% in 2019-2020. These results are consistent with the Treasury forecast in the July Economic and Fiscal Update. The June quarter result was driven by the largest fall in household consumption on record, with business and dwelling investment also falling. These falls were partly offset by a contribution from net exports and moderated by unprecedented government support. Household consumption fell by 12.1% in the quarter and by 2.6% in 1920, the first annual fall in household consumption in the history of the national accounts. Household consumption fell in 10 out of the 17 consumption categories, with the largest falls seen in the consumption of services. Social distancing and travel bans saw large falls in spending on transport services and hotels, cafes and restaurants.
Remember when we were looking at that article about all these people jumping into the stock market? Remember that one? I think it was ABC or one of the others. And there were all these people talking about how they were investing in the stock market, and this one young girl was going, yeah, I'm buying into tourism and travel because when the lockdowns end, I'm sure everyone will want to travel. Kind of seems a bit naive now, doesn't it? Thanks for the super chat, T-Towel. I appreciate it, mate. Oops, we can't hear his audio. Call and write your MP to end the public health emergency declaration in your state. Oh yeah, we need. That's the thing. We need to be politically active. I spoke to Christian from Renew, and he kind of got halfway there with getting members, which is really good effort. But it's getting people politically active. I mean, there's so much. It's the cash ban you want to make them aware of. You don't want that. I'm concerned with all the intervention they're doing into our digital platforms like YouTube and Google, and that'll just spread to all the others. It's going to destroy innovation. So, and then these constant restrictions of freedom.
Investment fell by 3.5% in the quarter, driven largely by falls in machinery and equipment investment. Investment in new machinery and equipment fell by 6.8% to be 13.4% lower through the year. Elevated uncertainty, business shutdowns and social distancing requirements following the onset of the pandemic resulted in businesses preserving liquidity by deferring, cancelling and limiting equipment purchases. However, the ABS has noted that the instant asset write-off lessened the COVID-19 driven falls, as was the intent of the policy. New building investment fell by 2.3%, while engineering construction rose by 1.9%. These outcomes compare favourably with those in other countries where construction activity was much more heavily restricted. The falls in business investment were concentrated in the non-mining sector, where investment fell by 5.1% in the quarter.
Remember how the RBA was pushing for more lending to businesses? And now they've implemented their instant asset tax write-off up to 100 grand or something. Who would be borrowing now to invest in their business with all the unknowns, all the uncertainties? Who would? You'd have to be bloody brave. You'd have to be in bed with the government, really.
Mining investment rose by 1.3% in the quarter, its third consecutive quarterly rise, and recorded its first rise in financial year terms in 7 years.
There you go. It's mining, guys. Is mining going to pull Australia out of this again? And does that mean WA is going to be doing it again? What's this? Debt and regret? Please ignore all these negative vibes and please ignore all these negative vibes and buy property. You can never lose. Well, I'm going to have some rum for that, mate. Yeah, we'll wait for him to say that. We'll wait for him to say it.
Investment fell by 6.8% to be 11.2% lower over the year. Both houses and other dwellings contributed to the decline this quarter, with falls across all states and territories with the exception of Tasmania.
Oh, the Tasmanians, Luke, you're supporting us, lukewarm. That's it. That's your houses. That's those extensions those duplexes you build out the back. That's it.
Today's result reflects the slowing in commencements and some reduced productivity on construction sites from social distancing requirements. New public final demand increased by 2% in the June quarter, driven by frontline services and COVID-19 responses to support households. This included increased expenditure on frontline employees, as well as the use of goods and services such as personal protective equipment, cleaning and logistics. Net exports contributed 1 percentage point to GDP growth in the quarter, as imports of goods and services fell more than the exports of goods and services. The health-related restrictions significantly affected our tourism and our international education industries, with services trade heavily impacted by travel bans on both inbound and outbound travel. Travel-related trade has almost ceased, resulting in sharp falls in both imports and exports.
Sorry, Joey's asking me if the country's run by Hillsong. I don't know. I don't know. I would hope Hillsong wouldn't be forcing all of these measures on people. It seems quite against a lot of what I've read in the Bible, to be quite honest. But you know, maybe. It'd be interesting to see if church attendance is going up, just in general. I think it is. If you can act, well, no, you can't go, can you? You can go to a bottle shop, but you can't go to church.
Australia recorded its largest current account surplus on record of $17.7 billion, or 3.8% of nominal GDP. This is the 5th consecutive surplus, the longest period of current account surpluses since the 1970s. Exports continue to be supported by the free trade agreements that our coalition government has entered into, which now cover around 70% of our two-way trading relationships, compared to just 26% when we first came to government. Inventories detracted 0.6 percentage points from GDP growth in the quarter, driven by retail and wholesale trade. Nominal GDP decreased by 7.6% in the June quarter, taking annual growth for 1920 to 1.7%, which is in line with Treasury's forecast of 2% in the July economic and fiscal outlook. Turning to the income side, compensation of employees, which measures the national wage and salary bill, decreased by 2.5% in the quarter to be 0.4% higher through the year. The decrease in the compensation of employees was driven by a record loss in jobs over the quarter, which the JobKeeper payments helped to cushion the blow. Despite a fall in compensation of employees, household disposable income increased by 2.2% in the quarter to be 6.4% higher through the year.
Okay, now just think about that. Household disposable income is up. Disposable income is up when everything else is going wrong. And we saw how high our savings had gone up, like over 19% earlier in today. So let's have a look at this.
The increase in household income was driven by the largest increase in social assistance payments in Australia's history.
There we have it. There we have it. How many people are better off? How many people here are better off? Ben, I wouldn't blame this on the Liberals, mate. I don't think Labor would be. I don't think they'd be any different. You know, if we had Labor in power, it just would have been. You'd have gender-based preferences on who could get JobKeeper. You know, if you're a minority woman, you probably get double JobKeeper or something. That'd be the rubbish that they'd bring in. It's the only difference. It's no difference.
Social assistance benefits rose by 42% in the quarter, contributing 4.4 percentage points to growth in household disposable income. The household savings ratio increased to a record high of 19.8% in the quarter. While policy supported household incomes, consumption fell sharply as a result of the restrictions and helped increase the savings ratio reflecting the caution of households. As expected, there is a clear industry story in these numbers.
So, just think about it. All that additional money going to people, that additional welfare, that's future debt. That's future debt. I'm running out of coffee here. Rachel, are you watching? Can you bring me another rum, honey, if you're watching this live stream? Please? We'll see.
Reflecting the differential impacts that the health restrictions have had across industries. Gross value added fell in 15 of the 20 industries, with the largest falls in hospitality and tourism-related industries. Gross value added in accommodation and food services fell by 39% in the quarter, by 22.6% in arts and recreation, and by 21.5% in transport, postal and warehousing. The national accounts show that government policy particularly targeted those industries most heavily impacted by health measures. The supported business income in a very difficult period where health measures to contain the spread of the virus forced many businesses to either close their doors or operate at reduced levels. This support will be a necessary buffer against reduced activity for some time and will help businesses recover on the other side. While these numbers are extremely sobering and indeed devastating, back in May we had expected them to be even worse. In March, Treasury were contemplating a collapse of GDP of more than 20% in the June quarter. In May, Treasury was forecasting GDP to fall by over 10% in the June quarter. But with the spread of the virus being contained, on the 8th of May, National Cabinet agreed a three-step framework to achieve a COVID-safe Australia and the lifting of restrictions by July. As restrictions were gradually eased over the June quarter, the recovery began to take shape. Consumer confidence had increased for 9 consecutive weeks and has now recovered 70% of its fall.
So he's talking it up, guys. He's talking it up. One sec, I don't think Rachel's watching. Just bear with me 1 second, everybody. Gonna have to get my own rum, everyone. Gonna have to get my own rum.
Business confidence had recovered nearly 80% of its fall. And of the 1.3 million people who either lost their job or saw their hours reduced to zero, more than half were back at work by July. This gives us confidence that as a nation we are better placed than most other nations, and that by containing the virus we can chart a pathway to economic recovery, and we can leave the worst of the economic crisis in the June quarter behind us. But the road ahead will be long. The road ahead will be hard. The road ahead will be bumpy. But it's important to recognise that this fall in the June quarter does not include the economic impact from the Stage 4 restrictions imposed by the Victorian Government in early August. This is something that will weigh heavily on the September quarter numbers. Today's devastating numbers.
Oh, ho, ho, look.
You want me to come in?
Yep, thank you, honey. Thank you. See, here, a good wife. There, she brought me the rum. And the trick is, actually...
You have to ring me.
Yeah. You should be watching all my streams all the time. Yeah, she doesn't do that. I never used to drink rum. Honestly, I didn't drink it that much. And when Rachel and I first lived together, she'd buy like a 6-pack of beer for me and a 6-pack of rum, and would always go. I'd drink the beer, and then I'd run out, so I'd end up going to the rum. So then she'd get pissed off because I'd drink all her rum, and now I've got a taste for it. So I blame her. I blame the wife. There we go. I mean, you know, all economic news sounds better when you're drinking it with rum. If I could get Bundy as a sponsor, that'd be good. You know. That'd be a bloody good sponsor. How do you get that? I probably can't even... Can you drink on YouTube? I probably can't. It's probably going to get me demonetized. Oh, well. I mean, we're Australian. Got to do what we can.
Confirm what every Australian knows. That COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on our economy and our lives like nothing we have ever experienced before.
The interventions into the economy have, I'd say. If we'd let it run course, would it? We're never going to know. I mean, it's kind of irrelevant now getting upset about it. Why is the rum gone? Because I drank it.
But there is hope, and there is a road out. Our plan...
I thought it was a bridge. Now the bridge has become a road? I can't keep up. It's a road, it's a bridge, it's a helicopter. What's going on? What's going on? You know? Opinions are good. I need to take up drinking. Yeah, we need to in a recession. Wait, hang on. Harold, what's this? Wait. Hang on. I watch whiskey reviews on YouTube all the time. Whiskey review? That's a thing? Shit, yeah. Oh, maybe I should do that on a channel. There's a really nice whiskey bar here in Brisbane. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, fantastic. Oh, yeah, no, the ketones are screwed today, Ernie. It's recession. You know, every 30 years when we have a recession, I'm having a rum. Stuff it. You know, sometimes you just go stuff it. I don't care. I don't care. I need it. Listen to politicians.
Plan for the recovery has seen hundreds of thousands of Australians get back to work, and thousands of Australian businesses open their doors. Our commitment to the Australian people is that we have your back. We were with you on the way into this crisis. We are with you through this crisis, and we will be with you all the way out of this crisis. Before taking a few questions, I'm just going to run through some slides quickly.
So wait, Patches, this is the first recession of your life. Congratulations, mate. Congratulations. Just don't go into debt, mate. Don't go into debt. And you can sell scrap metal for money. I've got a whole bunch of scrap metal just sitting out the front of the house. I really should take it there. I don't know what I'm going to get for it. Last time I went there, I had about 100 kilos, and I got such a little amount. It was so bad. Well, notice how they're talking about roads and bridges. It's going to be roads. That's where there'll be infrastructure. They'll be building us roads everywhere. Even though we can't travel anywhere, that'll be the projects.
This first slide just refers to the fall in GDP growth in the quarter at 7%, a record fall that we have never seen before. Second slide.
There it is, guys. There it is. That's a big fall. Heise, how would you stay afloat, mate? Cut costs back. I've done a video for 5 tips to prepare for a recession. I should probably do another one. But really just, I mean, for us, it was cutting costs now. I mean, for going from, I had a business with staff and a premises. Now I've just got Rachel and I working from home. My costs are nothing. I just got rid of my accounting software because that was $50 a month. Really just cut right back wherever you can to save money. That'd be my advice. And don't, you know, like these cans, cash them in, get every single dollar you can, buy food in bulk, really cut back, do your own repairs, learn to do without. You know, you'd be surprised what isn't essential. Longest we went was without hot water for 3 months, 3 to 6 months in summer, just to save money, because we couldn't repair the machine. So we just boiled the water and filled the bath like that. You can do it. Yeah, you put up with it. Save money.
This slide shows the contributions to the fall in GDP. As you can see, it's a household consumption story.
This is why, I mean, everyone's worried. Everyone is worried. Everyone's locked up. Everyone's scared. So what they're doing is they're all saving money, saving like crazy. You know, it's all saving, finding ways you can save. Yeah. Like, we've got 8 months worth of beef now. It cost us a lot of money to buy, but we've got it all. It's bulk and it's cheap.
6.7% of the fall has come from household consumption. Dwelling investment, business investment are also down. The two positives for the quarter were new public final demand and net exports. The change in inventories just reflects the caution among businesses to see a change in inventories rather than a restock or resupply. Next slide. Again, household consumption, quarterly fall, 12.1% down and 12.7% through the year.
12.7% through the year. Household consumption. No wonder we're all feeling it, guys. There are going to be a lot of businesses that can't come out of this. I wonder if there'll be a Royal Commission in a few years' time. You know? It's going to be interesting to see where Australia goes politically after all of this. If we pivot hard to the left, or if we go more nationalistic, or if we go less authoritarian. It'll be interesting to see. I think there'll be a lot of people who will be supporting the statist interventions here in Australia. I honestly think that there'll be a lot of people. Damn.
Next slide. This is by category.
So look at what's going up at the top there. Alcohol. Well, to be brutally honest, my alcohol consumption has gone up. Even if I do a live stream every now and then and drink rum, that's an increase for me. You know? Forza Drift, yeah, mate. Bulk meat. If you're feeding 9 people, that's how you save money, mate. You know? Spend a couple of grand on it. That's how you save a lot of money. Don't buy junk. Food is probably one of the biggest expenses of people. Haven't you heard what Bolt was saying? Smashed Ave is keeping people out of houses.
In terms of what has seen this fall in consumption, obviously transport services, hotels, cafes and restaurants, small increases in alcoholic beverages, furnishings and household equipment, recognising that people are staying at home, people are going down to the local store, buying themselves a new computer, a new TV, and obviously drinking more at home as opposed to at the local pub.
So that's why Harvey Norman, or what's his name? What's his name? That other computer shop did really well.
Business investment is a two-sided coin here. You've got the new non-mining investment, which is down by 5.1% in the quarter, whereas mining investment is at 1.3% for the quarter, and as I said, 3 consecutive quarters of improvements in mining. And as you can see from the prices, iron ore being very strong at the moment. New public final demand, again, quarterly increase.
JB, yep. So iron ore looks like it's driving us. Not Kogan, guys. Kogan doesn't create jobs in Australia.
Increase of 2% for public final demand. This reflects the increased spending on NDIS, increased spending on health. Bearing in mind, new public final demand does not include JobKeeper. Does not include JobKeeper spending. Is not in new public final demand. This is the services that we are providing. Compensation of employees. This is the wages bill for the Australian economy. And this is the fact that you've seen that wages bill go down very substantially.
Shelley is saying he ain't no weather girl.
Reflecting the number of people who lost their jobs over that June quarter. And obviously, the quicker the jobs come back, the quicker the wages bill comes back.
Look at that one. We'll just jump back there for a sec. Look at that there. That's less money spent in the economy.
And obviously, the quicker the jobs come back, the quicker the wages bill comes back. This is
Flying Wombat thinks 70% of the people in Victoria want socialism. The oldest don't, but the younger do. Yeah, I've seen that. I remember I did videos a couple of years ago about the rise in popularity of socialism in the young people. I've seen that. What do you think, everyone?
a very important chart, because what this shows is that you've got a growth in disposable income of 2.2 percentage points, but the contribution of the social assistance benefits was 4.4 percentage points. So without that increase in social assistance benefits, which is the coronavirus supplement, which is the increased people on job seeker, you would have seen negative quarter for disposable income, house income.
Did you get that one there, guys? All the support payments, if we didn't have that, disposable income would be negative, would be down. So they're doing everything they can.
Household savings.
Opinions are good are saying Zoomers are red pilling. Yeah, that's what was thought. It's not actually true. It's not actually true. That was hoped. They'd be like hyper conservative. Yeah, unfortunately not.
Savings ratio has jumped to be 19.8%. If you look back at the GFC.
19.8%, everyone. 19.8%. So this literally is the hidden secrets of money, isn't it? Have you all watched that, everyone? Has everyone watched the hidden secrets of money? Let me know in the chats if you have, because you should. You know, the hidden secrets of money playlist with Mike Maloney. You got to watch all of these. It sounds like exactly Mike Maloney. Oh, hang on, wait. Mike Maloney here. Gold, silver. You got to watch these because he's got one there with the animation, and it sounds like this is exactly happening what he's predicted. You know. Maggie Craig wants to know what red pilling is. Let her know in the chat, boys. Let her know in the chat. So from the Matrix. Learning reality, really.
It was 10.9%. This is a reflection of the caution in Australian households.
So that's the GFC, and that's now. That was the last recession, the recession Australia had to have back there.
But also the fact that the restrictions mean that they can't go out and consume. This...
Well, yeah, that's a good point. You can't really go and do anything, can you? You can't really go and do anything.
Savings ratio is obviously high today, but it will be important in the economic recovery as people use their balance sheets to spend as we come out of this crisis.
So that's when people get the confidence too. See, here's the trick, guys. Just don't spend anything, and then they'll keep printing more and more money. And when you get it, just flip it into actual assets of value. You know? No Name's asking if I consider myself a conservative or a libertarian. It depends on the day, mate. Whenever I do my GST, that's when I become an anarchist and want to bring the whole system down. I'm a bit all over the place, to be honest. I'm a bit all over the place. I don't want to align to any ideology or political group or even party, because I think you'll kind of get disappointed. You know.
And this is...
Luke thinks I'm conservative. Oh, how do you know, mate? I could be die-hard Labour all the way. You know, go. Yeah, no, I'm not even going to fucking pretend. I'm not even going to pretend.
The international story.
I mean, there's certain things I really admire in the libertarian approach, but I think it can be somewhat idealistic in some regards too, with regards to being able to actually compete against organised groups. In some ways, I see it as an ideal, as the same way as you know, as the utopian vision of the socialists. I think we need to take the best things of everything and try and work with it, but we're so bloody tribalist now. A classical liberal, yeah, there's a lot there. You know.
And this should not be lost on any Australian.
So here's the positive spin, guys. This is one thing I want us all to I want to put to the chat. I want to put to the chat to think about. Now, we're doing pretty bad here in Australia. We're doing pretty bad here in Australia. You know, we're doing 7%. I'm a unionist for the monarchy, hey. We're doing pretty bad here in Australia. You know, 7% fall. But look at all the other countries that are doing much worse. So there's concern that interest rates may go up if the dollar starts getting into trouble. But if there's still constant demand for our natural resources, wouldn't that require additional demand for our money? And then push it into a real GDP? Joe thinks I'm a conservative. I should do the political compass test sometimes. But it's so biased and all over the place. You know, there's certain things I'm quite conservative about and certain things I'm quite liberal about. So it depends on my mood. It depends how many rums I had. Our flying wombat is putting Jesus Christ first and how you stay balanced. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing as well. You've got to understand we're a very secular state at the moment. And I'd argue that's one reason why a lot of people are responding so negatively to this virus. You know, because they're afraid of death. They're afraid of death. You know. They haven't dealt with it. They don't even have a positive death idea. It's not really discussed, is it?
We have performed better in the most difficult circumstances than all these other developed nations.
So this is the thing. We're the best of the losers. So could that mean we'll get more investment coming here in Australia?
Japan, the United States, Germany, the OECD average is just under 10%, Canada at 11.5%, Italy, France, and of course the United Kingdom at over 20%.
The UK. Mr. Gordon's asking, if you were the King of England, what would you do? Oh, I'd probably be a tyrant or something very dangerous. I've played enough Crusader Kings. You know, I reckon I'd do a great job. I do a great job.
Over 20%, and 3 times the fall of what we've seen.
Bright shirt isn't scared of death. Oh yeah. Oh, well, anyone in the medical industry, you bastards don't count. You know, when you go to like dinner with friends, and they would bring their other medical friends, and just the discussions they have. You know,
here in Australia. Thank you.
Howard makes a good point
So
here
that's
about
the story. Happy to.
It being about individualists versus collectivists. I mean, fundamentally, it does come down to that. You know, do you think other people have the right to your property, or do you have the right to take stuff off other people? You know. So let's have a look at these questions here.
Take some questions. Sorry, Lani first.
Treasurer, you mentioned that the lockdowns in Melbourne will weigh heavily on the September figures. Is it going to be worse than this quarter? And also, mining is one of the bright spots in this data. So how thankful are you for the mining sector?
As always, I'm thankful to Western Australia and its strong mining sector, and Queensland's mining sector, and indeed mining right around the country.
Okay, all the West Australians and Queenslanders, come on, let's raise a stein in the chat. We're just lifting up everyone else once again. Cheers. Let us know in the comments, guys. And let's hope those West Australians don't secede the secessionist movement. We don't want it to happen. We want New Zealand to join the country too. Get our economic complexity up. Come on, Kiwis, join us. Become part of the Federation.
Because as you can see, it's been up for 3 consecutive quarters. It's a highly productive sector.
Ernie B, yeah, we do have ketones to keep us healthy. Not me now. Well, I did my blood this morning. I was doing well. But yeah, with a few rums. It's
a big export earner. It's a big employer. In terms of the September quarter, our expectation, Treasury's expectation, is that it will either be slightly negative or flat. Now, that's their expectation today for the September quarter, and I had indicated that publicly at the time that the Stage 4 restrictions were announced. Now, of course, the Stage 4 restrictions are expected to come off in Victoria mid-September. If there were any changes to that timeline, then that would impact upon Treasury's forecast. But the events in Victoria are expected to reduce GDP by $10 to $12 billion in the September quarter, and we're expecting to see up to 400,000 people either lose their job or see their hours reduced to zero.
Just before we go to that, this is the price of iron ore right now, $125 US spot price. I haven't been keeping track for it for a couple of weeks. Look at that. Look at that. Damn. Oh, and Shinjuku 96. You know, you don't pay up bald people, mate. You know, it's a sign of supreme masculinity. That's it. But look at that, guys. Look at that. Wow.
What is your plan for economic recovery? Our plan is the Job Maker plan.
So they're putting it all into Job Maker. Remember that one. Remember that one.
And that consists of bringing forward up to $10 billion in infrastructure projects, shovel-ready projects. That involves more flexibility in our industrial relations system. And what we passed through the Parliament yesterday with the extension and the expansion of JobKeeper is an absolute critical part to that, because it includes the ability for more flexibility in the workplace. And obviously we have those work streams that we are participating with both unions and employer groups in working on changes around the laws for casuals, for greenfield sites, for award simplification, for compliance and the like. Skills, Mark, is going to be absolutely critical. 340,000 new training places.
Training places are useless if you don't have a job after it, Frydenberg. You know that, mate. You know, I know you're giving them hope. I know you're giving them hope. I mean, this is the thing with, okay, if they're going to do this statist intervention in the economy, which is going to happen, and, you know, the Bradfield scheme is something that if you had the capacity to steer your taxes, that would be something I would love to steer my taxes to. It'd be something I want to invest my super in, something that will leave a legacy of capacity for our nation, you know? Brett, thank God we're a quarry. Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing. With all the rhetoric from China, with all the BS from China, you know, they'll still be buying our quarry. They'll still be buying our minerals. Will they pull us out of this again? Will it be the same? Will we learn? Will we learn? That's the real problem.
The Job Trainer plan is one that we are working together with the states on. Cutting red tape. Just the other week, we agreed amongst treasurers in the Council on Federal Financial Relations to agree to the harmonisation of occupational licensing laws. That has been discussed for more than a decade. That will be critical to labour mobility as we get through this.
Well, that'd be good. I've got to write in a register as an architect in every bloody state. We've got boards duplicating work in every other state. It's just nuts. It's nuts. Waste of resources. Such a waste of resources everywhere.
Crisis. And then, of course, our tax system. And our tax system is important to encourage and incentivise investment, and we've made two major changes recently there. Obviously, the extension of the instant asset write-off to goods of up to $150,000, but also the 50% accelerated depreciation allowance, again for businesses with a turnover of up to $500 million. Now, the budget on October the 6th will be the next stage in our Job Maker plan. But we've already started to see, outside of Victoria, the jobs coming back. Of the 1.3 million Australians who lost their jobs or saw their hours reduced to zero since the start of the crisis, around 700,000 are now back at work, or more than half. And so there are some positive signs outside of Victoria. Of course, when it comes to borders, we want to see more flexibility around those arrangements. That will help generate improvements in the economic recovery. And of course, Victoria, once they get the virus under control and they can ease restrictions and start reopening, that will be very important, given Victoria is a quarter of the national economy. Catherine.
Victoria really is like California, isn't it? Really is.
You've said that the national accounts are a household consumption story largely. You've also said that the stage 4 restrictions in Victoria will weigh heavily on the national accounts in September. Is now the time?
Oh, hang on. Mr. Nice Guy has a fantastic suggestion. Getting rid of the petrol excise. Yep. That'd be good. That'd help stimulate the economy. You know? Things like that.
To be cutting the rates of JobKeeper and JobSeeker.
Well, we've always said, Catherine, that our measures in response to COVID-19 were temporary, they were targeted, they were scalable. Now, JobKeeper was initially legislated for 6 months, and now we have extended it for another 6 months. And at $101 billion, it's the single largest economic support measure.
Harold's asking what if JobMaker includes funding for thousands of home YouTubers. Then you know what? I should create a course on how to YouTube and put it up and then get government funding for people to do the course. I'll become a registered YouTube trainer. I could do that. Don't worry, they'll do something stupid. They'll remove an opportunity for people to generate income or to create innovation or dialogue. They'll bugger it up. They'll bugger it up. Come on, you know that.
That any Australian government has ever undertaken. And it will continue to provide critical support to businesses and their staff with the expectation, taking into account what's happened in Victoria, that there'll be more workers on JobKeeper from the state of Victoria than from all the other states and territories combined. Now, when it comes to the transition...
So Victoria is dragging us down. They're the anchor, guys.
We have always said it will transition. And we believe at $1,000 for the March quarter and at $1,200 for the December quarter, it's still providing significant support. I've seen that the Labor Party are out calling for an extension to be at $1,500. But Anthony Albanese himself has said only recently that we need to be, in his words, it will need a tapering off. He says...
Do you reckon Albanese will last as the opposition leader till the next election, guys? Do you think he'll last? I mean, we've got an election coming up here in Queensland. I want to look at all the parties and go through all of that. I'm not seeing much from the opposition. She's not making much noise. I'm worried we'll get Palachuk or Palaszczuk back in. People just vote for her. That's what I'm worried. And I don't have, in my electorate, I don't have any other people to vote for. I've got just, Labor, Liberal, or the Greens. Be good if we had some alternatives.
What we say is the plan is there for 6 months now, but there will need to be some form of tapering off. He was asked, what does that mean? What does that look like? And he says it looks like it's going down over a period of time. The Shadow Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, has said exactly the same. He said, I've said that what they should be looking at...
Sorry, Flying Wombat, what are you saying about Labor's split? What's going on there? Is that, are we actually going to get a Labor Party that isn't utterly screwed up by SJW garbage and might be able to, put a coherent argument that people could vote for? Because ideologically, there's certain things for Labor that would stop me from ever voting for them right now. But we need to have a mix of politicians in the House of Reps to debate and discuss so they can come together and work for something, at least to, slow them down. Clive Palmer, who wants to vote for Clive Palmer? They're screwing him over in WA. That's just atrocious what's happening there. Catman, run for a party, Heise. I have. I've run once. I ran in my seat because I wanted to vote for a pro-life candidate and there wasn't any. That's where I actually met, what's his name? I interviewed him for the Libertarian Party. Hang on. It's Andrew for Libertarians. And it was a very interesting thing because I think the Greens lady, the academic that was running for the Greens, hated me the most of all of them. And it was an interesting experience seeing how unorganized the minor parties are. And, we just did it for 2 weeks. And seeing actually the spruikers hand out the cards for Labor, lying to people. lying to people. That was quite shocking to see. You know, that was quite shocking to see.
Is some kind of tapering. Well, we've looked at it and now we're implementing it, and we think that is the way forward for the Australian economy. Yes.
You've been agitating this week to see a recovery plan from the Victorian Premier. Are you comfortable that he now has a plan? He said he's going to announce one. And how important is it that the restrictions are eased as Victoria's coming out of this? And also just on the borders, what kind of impact would it have on the economy if those...
Just one thing Brett's saying here, I don't like any of the current politicians, no backbone in any of them. I would love just one of them to stand their ground and not wilt to the PC SJW rubbish that goes on. Here's the thing. I think the problem is when you're in one of the major parties, you're kind of lost. You just become part of their brand. You know, you just become part of their brand. You've got no advocacy. And honestly, I don't think Australia needs more political parties. We've got too many of them. I think people need to understand the power of their preferences, and so we can shift the Overton window. Because honestly, in some regards, some of the policies that you know, all these parties have good policies, but so many people are running up and trying to start up their other ones. There's a lot of One Nation policies that I agree with. There's some I don't agree with. You know, there's a lot of libertarian policies I agree with, and some I don't agree with. So you can be smart with your preferences. With your preferences, it'd be great if we had a House of Reps with a real mix of people in there. You know, even a couple of Greens. Maybe we should put a quota on lawyers.
Borders were to remain closed, say, past Christmas?
Well, as you know, on Sunday I was calling for a recovery plan, a way out from the Victorian government. The Premier then said at the time it was too early for a detailed plan. I repeated that on Monday. Business has repeated that call. Indeed, many have repeated that call. And I welcome the Premier now saying that he will provide a plan over the weekend. We look forward to seeing.
Yeah, Patch, that's the point. We don't want bills to get passed through unless there's consensus so that we compromise. You know, more people working together. That's the point. You know?
That plan. But Victorians need to hear more about the message of hope and the way out, and less about the longer road in. That has been our consistent message. We will continue to work with the Victorian government, but the Victorian people obviously want to see an end to those restrictions as soon as possible. When it comes to the borders, again, we have said that right now there's too much confusion, there's too much cruelty about the border restrictions. And what we need is more compassion and more common sense. It's just not on for a mother, indeed she is a mother, but she's lost an unborn child because of the confusion at the borders. It's just not on that.
Yeah, that's shocking what happened there. That really is shocking.
A 4-year-old boy who is getting treatment for his cancer is separated from his mother. It's just not on that a Victorian school teacher 2 kilometres from the South Australian border is deemed non-essential to be able to go and teach their class. So what we want to see is...
Oh, Advanced Dad, yeah, no, I'm quite strategic with my voting. You know, I'm quite strategic. I agree. That's why, you know.
An agreed definition of a hotspot. And that is an agreed definition based on medical advice, that is based on clear metrics, that is transparent, and that can lead to a more targeted approach to easing of their border restrictions. And the Prime Minister's taken the lead on that, and he will be discussing that definition with premiers and state and chief ministers on Friday.
Treasurer.
Sorry, we'll go here and then we'll go across. Yep.
Treasurer, the income went up 2.2% in the June quarter. How do you want people to use that as the restrictions start to ease? And you've got 30 days until the insolvency rules start to abate. When will the government face up to that economic reality?
Well, hang on. Did the Greens try and lock Aussies out of forests? I know they kind of, you know, prospecting. I know they kind of destroyed the timber industry down there. I mean, the problem is they're ideologues. They're ideologues. We need a counter to them.
Well, in terms of insolvency rules, they were temporary changes, and we're now considering the extension of those temporary arrangements.
Oh shit! No, don't extend the time. Don't extend the insolvency rules. Oh boy, they're the worst bloody. Oh, and I spilled some rum. They're the worst ones. See what happens here?
Recognising that they have supported the economy through a difficult time. There are a number, about 80 separate regulatory changes that we put in place for COVID-19. You'd be familiar with many of them, whether it's electronic signatures, virtual AGMs, other changes around responsible lending, clarifications and the like. So we are looking at extending a number of these in light of the fact that the COVID-19 recovery is still underway. And in relation to your first question, it's not for me to tell Australians how to spend their money. Michelle.
Treasurer, you've spoken about the problems and trauma in terms of compassion of closed borders, but do you have any Treasury figures, estimates, modelling on what you think the border closures?
Thian Horn is concerned with what's happening in Victoria, mate. You need to make your political will known. My biggest concern is that your state is leaning more authoritarian than you realise. You might be in a minority. You might be in a minority. I think a lot of people there will accept the jackboot. That's what I think. I think you need to maybe look at a plan of getting out if you don't want to live there. We need to publicly advocate at a national level, at a federal level, to try and step in. But, you know, Jay's going, no, that's the Victorians that'll arrest you, mate, for your Facebook post, not the federal. They're different. They're different. And I don't think, well, I think they arrested her for inciting a protest. I mean, that's the power they've got. That's the power they've given them. They can. The problem is they can change the rules. Clive Palmer had a good talk on Sky News with Alan Jones with regards to the just historically what had happened in Germany, where the politicians and the lawyers didn't fight the state, just giving themselves power and giving themselves exemptions. That's what we're seeing here. That's what we're seeing here in Australia. That's the danger. The danger is if we head down this path any further. Now, have any of you read the book Ordinary Men? Or have you heard of it? I'll bring it up. We'll have a look at that later.
Will cost, say, over the next 3 months?
Well, that work is actually underway right now by Treasury, and
thanks for the super chat, Yogi. Appreciate it, mate. She was pregnant. Yeah, mate. You know, I'm used to. Let's just say, with a wife that's been pregnant 5 times, I'm no longer a little, treat him like a soft little princess. That I've kind of gotten over that. It's a little bit of bullshit, really, in some regards. They're fine. And she wasn't that heavily pregnant. She's fine.
Once that work is completed, I will.
Women are a lot tougher than you think.
I will talk more publicly about it. But for example, tourism, you've got a vast proportion of the tourism dollar that's spent in Australia that is based on domestic tourism. And the inability to engage in interstate travel is one that is costing jobs and is one that is hurting the economic.
Hey, honey, how you going? You're watching now, are you? Oh, shit. Well, remember when you were first pregnant? I wouldn't even let you lift a box, Oops.
Recovery. Obviously around agricultural and the freight code that has been agreed, that's all important steps forward. And then there's obviously the various health issues that are trying to be resolved as well between the states. But it's been positive to see Victoria and New South Wales engage constructively on those border issues in terms of getting more clarity and opening up. But Treasury has that work underway.
Just, on a personal level, how does it feel to be the person who's overseeing Australia's economy when it's the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression?
Oh boy. He'll be remembered for this, won't he? He'll be remembered for this.
Well, it's a great responsibility to be Treasurer at this time when the Australian economy needs more help than ever and when Australians are doing it so tough. I am, like the Prime Minister, like the Finance Minister, like all our colleagues, spending every waking minute trying to get Australians through this once-in-a-century pandemic. And it's not about us. It's about them. It's about the businesses that have had to close their doors or let go staff. It's about families who are locked in their homes in Victoria for 23 hours a day, unable to see grandparents, kids unable to get educated because the schools are closed. These are the impacts of this once-in-a-century pandemic. So rather than looking back, I'm looking forward, and my focus is on getting the Australian people through this economic shock that is like no other.
Treasurer, the Prime Minister said you need the economy to grow about 1 percentage point above trend for 5 years to get the budget under control.
Oh shit, that's not going to happen. We haven't been above trend on a per capita basis since the GFC. There's no way that's going to happen.
Well, that hasn't happened since the 60s. The Reserve Bank yesterday unleashed another $50 billion over the next 6 months, and you've just articulated $10 billion in bring forward of infrastructure. You're going to have to do far, far more, aren't you, in the budget to get the economy growing at a much quicker clip, aren't you?
Yes, Luke, Pub Test is on Twitch. You can also watch HeiseSays or my live streams on Twitch. Everyone, please follow me on Twitch. I'm trying to get enough numbers to get affiliated. You know, jump on there. Twitch for the win.
Well, our focus has always been on 3 separate phases. There's been the income support, which continues to this day through the JobKeeper program, and that's been absolutely critical in maintaining that formal connection between employers and employees. And you've heard from the Governor of the Reserve Bank that, in his words, it's a remarkable program, and that without it, many more people would lose their jobs. The second part of our program has been boosting aggregate demand, and we had the Governor of the Reserve Bank address the Treasurers last Friday. And his message was to them was that they can do more with their balance sheets to boost aggregate demand. And this is on infrastructure, this is on social housing, this is on land tax and payroll tax relief. And as you know, we've announced a number of our own stimulus programs, whether it's in housing, whether it's in the arts, whether it's in aviation and tourism and the like. They're all designed to boost aggregate demand and support it. The third part of the program, and you'll see more of this in the budget, which is how do we make it easier for businesses to grow, to innovate and to hire? How do we make it easier for businesses to do business? And that's what...
Reduce tax and legislation. That'd be a good idea. Oh, wouldn't that be great if we came out of the end of this with less government intervention in business and our personal lives? Can you? I mean, this is probably me being naive and hoping that positive comes out of this, and we don't slide into an authoritarian state. You know, what do you reckon, guys?
Where, without great cost to the budget, you can unlock the entrepreneurship and the innovation.
You're not going to be able to do that if you do things like forcing internet service platforms to pay money to legacy media. You know, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, guys.
Of our businesses. And that's about cutting red tape. That's about the industrial relations flexibility. That's about trying to get better systems in place. There's a whole digital transformation story as well, which is critical to our economic recovery. So yes, the task ahead of us is huge. It's huge across the world. And yes, our debt will be higher than ever before because every dollar we spend today is borrowed money. But we had no option than to spend as needed to get the public through this crisis. But we are very focused on the recovery plan.
Oh, Mr. Nice Guy, yeah, mate, they need to reduce government spending. There's lots of fat in there, mate. You know, I mean, on a state level, I just saw Queensland is implementing a program to save ancient languages. I mean, okay, it sounds nice, but it's frankly a waste of time and resources. You know, even Irish saving their original language. I watch a whole lot of Irish YouTubers that think it's a complete waste of time. We're a bit precious about that type of stuff. Things change.
I'll go over here. Mr.
You
Probe.
said that you had no option but to spend lots of money. Tony Abbott says that suggests that you've perhaps spent too much. He went so far as to say that we should perhaps let nature take its course. What's your response to that kind of thinking?
That'll be interesting. I have to have a look at some of the stuff Tony Abbott is suggesting. You know, good old Abbott.
Well, we are in the midst of a once-in-a-century pandemic, and as I indicated in my opening remarks, Andrew, initially Treasury were forecasting a fall to...
Rolf, we need more transgender studies. Well, maybe we actually do, to kind of counter all the bullshit social justice warriors which are delegitimizing serious health problems and mental issues that people have where they can get legitimate treatment for, you know?
GDP of more than 20%, the fall that we've seen in the United Kingdom. But through the actions that we've taken on both the health and the economic side, we've been able to save 700,000 jobs. The unemployment rate would be 5 percentage points higher than it is today. Economists use the term scarring in the labour market. What they refer to is people who lose their job, who find it very difficult to get back in. And we all know that if you don't have a job, it's not just the economic impact and your loss of potential income, but it's also the emotional impact that it has and on your overall well-being.
Lawsy was hitting into Abbott. I haven't listened to Lawsy in a long time, to be honest. Peter Schiff for PM. Wear a MAGA hat around inner city Brisbane. Would people notice? You know?
So that's why everything we do, Andrew, is about trying to get people back to work.
Treasurer.
With the train of thought, with the fall in household consumption in these figures and the tapering of income support that you have planned over the next 6 months.
Mario raises a good point that they haven't saved the jobs. Because they haven't, really, have they? They've just propped them up. They've just propped them up. You know? Mr. Nice Guy is saying politics need to get backbones as soon as they leave politics. Yeah, that's the thing. You actually can talk about it. You can talk about it. Yeah, I think a lot of them are frustrated when they get into Parliament how little influence they actually have. Frankly, I think a lot of our political decisions are made and dictated by the bureaucratic bullshit that's surrounding all the political class. I think they have a lot more influence and a lot more control than we realise. You know, and they're paid a lot more than our politicians. We're seeing that with all the stuff that's put before them. You know, it's crazy. And any politician that speaks their mind, you know, gets hammered. The media just pulls them apart because there's a vested interest. I mean, Liberal, they're getting money handouts for policy development. The amount of money they get to develop policy is just nuts. That's why, honestly, if we can get more people politically active out of this, I think that could be a great positive. More people, argue that we need to shift the Overton window, drag us out of the spiral to leftism would be a great thing. But I don't know, young people just... Is it the schooling? You know?
Is it not important in terms of stimulus fast-tracking in the budget, the income tax cuts as business groups have been calling for? And while I've got you, can I also ask, what are your views on the current state of lending by the banks, given the RBA boosted its credit pool to $200 billion yesterday?
Well, on the issue of tax cuts, obviously we legislated those, the biggest tax cuts in over 20 years, $158 billion worth of tax cuts. The tax cuts are in 3 different stages, and we are considering the timing of those tax cuts, and any announcements would be made in the budget. But it is fair to say these are very substantial reforms to our tax system, because you're going to have one big tax bracket between $45,000 and $200,000, where taxpayers pay a marginal rate of no more than 30 cents in the dollar. So you'll have 94% of taxpayers paying a marginal rate of no more than 30 cents in the dollar, whereas today it's 63%. On the issue...
Have they brought those tax rates forward?
...of borrowing, and this is a conversation I've been having regularly with the bank CEOs. It's important for them to lean in, and it's fair to say they have leant in through this recovery. We have worked very closely with the banks as well as with the prudential regulator, APRA, to...
Oh, sorry. Advanced Dad is telling everyone to check, what is his name? Malcolm Roberts? About $13,000 a year climate policies. Yes, I want to. I'm planning on doing a video about that, because can anyone guess? Oh, hang on, I'll bring that up. Can anyone guess? Guess in the comments. Let me know. How do you think Victoria is going to part of their recovery strategy? What do you think it involves? You know, let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments.
Ensure the proper treatment of capital and loans, so that more than $200 billion worth of loans could...
You got it, Flying Wombat.
...be deferred through this crisis to provide relief for the borrower. And the banks, I think, have done a really good job through this crisis. In the last 2 weeks, Phil, 13% of people or borrowers who had their loans deferred have actually started to pay those loans back. And we have seen a 5.4% increase in owner-occupier borrowing in recent...
Hang on. President Trump said if he's re-elected, he'll forgive this year's payroll tax. Payroll tax is the stupidest bloody tax in the world, and everyone's right, it is renewable energy. You know. Didn't they bring that in Australia because of the war? You know, World War II? That's the problem. They never disappear, these things. Never disappear.
Months. And we have also seen, according to the ABA, more than $1.5 billion of new SME loans in the recent period. So I'm confident that the banks are seized of this task, and the flow of credit through the economy is going to be absolutely critical to the recovery.
Treasurer. You were asked about Tony Abbott's remarks about the health dictatorship and the cost of the health controls. Do you...
The health dictatorship. I like that one. We'll have to use that one all the time. The health dictatorship.
Do you think that he has a point at all? You're seeing the economic consequences of these health restrictions. Does Tony Abbott have a point?
Well, it's about getting the balance right. We all support it, the health restrictions, because primarily this is a health crisis.
Maggie says, don't believe what Trump says. Yeah, but what are your alternatives over there? The Democrats right now aren't viable. They've just lost the plot. I mean, seriously, they've got a senile old man that's going to be replaced by a judge or whatever she's called, Kamala Harris. She's done some horrific things. Just, yeah. The US is just a crazy world. It is a crazy world right now. So politicized, you know?
Where hundreds of Australians have died. And we're walking around this building now wearing masks. And that is why the economic shock has been so great, because it's not just affected demand, but it's also affected supply, because people haven't been able to go to work, businesses haven't been able to be open in the normal way. So I think the health response has been right, or the health focus has been right. But that is different from the pathway out. And that's why I've been so vocal about Victoria, David. I feel so passionate about my home state. I don't want those restrictions to be in place for one day longer than they have to. And as the Treasurer of the country, I see the economic impact that it's having. There's lots of talk today about the AFL. Well, think about Grand Final Day at the MCG. Grand Final Day at the MCG, you would have 4 MCGs full of people, which is the equivalent of the 400,000 Victorians who will either lose their jobs or see their hours reduced to zero as a result of the crisis. 400,000 Victorians. Now, I want them to get back to work as soon as possible, as soon as practicable. So that is why the pathway out is so critical. That's why the Prime Minister has been talking so strongly.
Megs, it's people are doing this to themselves through their ignorance, fear and laziness. It's kind of too late now. We've had so many years of just good times, and you've got people voting for authoritarian governments and socialist governments. You know, it's just the natural progression. This is the danger of having governments that can give power to themselves, no matter what political... Well, all of them are authoritarian governments. Governments that are more authoritarian than more and take away individual responsibilities from people. You know, it all leads to this. I honestly don't think if Liberal was in charge of Victoria, I bet you'd be exactly the same thing, pretty much. I can't see any difference.
About the road out.
Treasurer, please.
Treasurer, given these are the worst numbers on record, will this be the worst recession in Australia's history?
Well, it's a different recession to previous recessions that we've seen in Australia. It's faster and deeper than what we saw in the 80s and 90s. In those recessions, it took longer for the unemployment rate to rise as it has. And after those recessions, it took longer than we certainly are hoping for people to get back to work. The other difference about what we're seeing now is the cohorts of people who are most impacted. In the 80s and the 90s, you saw some structural change in the Australian economy, particularly in the manufacturing sector, and you saw older people, mainly men, who were losing jobs. Right now, we have seen more younger people and more women lose jobs because of the sectors that they have been working in predominantly: hospitality, tourism, retail. That's why...
I wonder if this will have an impact on population growth in years ahead. I wonder if this will leave a legacy on a generation. Maybe they'll be too scared to have kids, or they'll justify it. You know, I mean, they're already, you know, birth rate's already low enough. You know, oh, everyone's wind turbines killing birds. Oh, I mean, we'll have a look at how much wind power we're generating tonight. How about that? After this,
the recent job numbers, where we had 340,000 jobs come back in the last 2 months. 58% of those jobs were women, 44% were young people aged 15 to 24. And we are very focused on that challenge, on helping young people get back to work. That's where the skills and the training programs are absolutely critical, and helping more women get back to work. Last question.
Treasurer, New South Wales has been heralded as the gold standard for dealing with COVID outbreaks, but in August, consumer confidence dropped more there than it did in Victoria. It's clear even when economies reopen, people are scared to spend and will scare easily. What more can be done to mitigate that? Or is the message to businesses that they just have to accept there will be a hit if there is a cluster of cases in their area before we have a vaccine?
Well, actually, I want to praise New South Wales and the leadership of Gladys Berejiklian and her treasurer, Dominic
Berejiklian, that's how you say her name. Bloody hell, all these articles. Berejiklian. Why do all these politicians have weird names? You know, it should just be limited to either English or German names, that's it.
Who I speak to on a regular basis.
Wait, I shouldn't say that. That sounds really bad. Oops.
315,000 jobs have been created in New South Wales in recent months. It's been very strong jobs growth. And I think the way New South Wales has tested and traced the new numbers, the new cases that have arisen in New South Wales, has been a model for the rest of the country. You see, this is the real challenge. How do we live with the virus? We've never sought to eliminate the virus. What we have sought to do is to suppress it. And only with the best testing and the best tracing can we actually contain those numbers of new cases and start to see the economy open up and get people back to work, which they have done in New South Wales. Now, in terms of confidence, confidence in this crisis is a function of our success on the health front. And if we are able to contain the virus as they have done in New South Wales, indeed as they have done in 7 out of the 8 jurisdictions across Australia, then businesses will continue to invest, businesses will continue to employ, and businesses will open their door. Now in Victoria, the situation has been different. And obviously...
Well, because he had his union mates run the security businesses that also had all, what was it? Social justice policies in their employment strategy?
A real challenge exists in Victoria. But I'm really pleased that those cases have started to come down. And that's why I think the plan that the Premier announces on Sunday has to be clear, has to be concise, and has to give confidence and certainty to the businesses of his state. Thank you.